How's it going, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on this video. This is a CDL Talent Roundtable discussion where all of us as talent got together, put our heads together, and basically talked on each and every single CDL roster heading into MW2. We chat on what was their journey last season, what they've currently constructed, and the way that this roster could look or this team could look moving into the MW2 year. So major thank you to all of the talent for joining in on this, for having these conversations, as well as to Bryce, who actually orchestrated all of this stuff to come together. Now the full-on VODs will have a full part 1 and a full part 2. Those links rather will be in the description of this video that you can feel free to check out to watch it more in long form. If you want to check out certain teams, certain snippets, I will have that here located on the channel. If you haven't seen your favorite teams upload yet, I promise it's coming. We talked about all 12 of them. So make sure to let us know, whether through different content pieces, if you want to tweet, comment, like, subscribe, any way that you guys can show us some support to let us know that you guys like content like this. We would love to hear it. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback, output on ways that we could even make it better. So without further ado, I'll leave you to it. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you back here on the channel really soon.
To our last team for this half of the round table. And we are ending on a big one. OpTic. We need to talk about the green wall. Last year was, I mean, there's a ton to talk about, but we are going to go into the past. Last year, obviously won the first major. And then the issues started. Over and over again. We hyped them up over again. I think the only person who didn't hype them up was probably Ant, and he was right. Interesting year for them last year. They tried out a couple of subs. They had some issues. Illy, obviously,
it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional for them trying.
No, of course, but it is the fact remains.
Yeah, very
trying year for that team, and there are still question marks going into this year. Like, think about how their year has ended. People are still were worried about Illy's injury. People were worried about, the fact that they technically dropped their players this year. Scump's gonna retire. The end of last year did not look great for OpTic. They looked like a good team, but it never looked like they were going to regain where they were supposed to be. They fell behind and kind of never recovered.
Yeah.
As much as people know about, I remember the amount of crap I got, by the way, for my power rankings because I dared to put some teams above them, and I'm like, I didn't gloat. I should have gloated after. It was just like, well, fucking look, my power rankings were more right than you thought. Almost like I know that I don't go off just being a fan, and that's one of the biggest problems with talking about OpTic, by the way, is no matter what we say, no matter how based in realism or what we've heard behind the scenes or anything. Stat-wise, is unless you put them number one, fans are going to come at your neck.
Oh, yeah, the green wall. We know how strong they are.
But, that pressure is now on them again. I don't know what happened at the end of last year. There was some disagreements. The players got dropped, and then they went, no, let's run it back. And I don't know whether that was partially because, Scott was like, hey, I just want to go in with the same players. I don't want to have to learn new shit with new players for my last year. I feel like this entire roster is all about him, essentially.
Nah, I disagree. Okay. I know we're on the Scump retire year, but it's all about the rest of the three. I think Scump knows, all right, I'm going to go out there and give it my final all. But the other three players, they're not going to have any pressure on their back because this is what they want to do. It's just even though it's Scump last year, this is the squad that they want to play with. Obviously, you saying, they had issues where they weren't going to be able to re-sign right off the rip, but Scump was on vacation. My boy didn't even know what was going on. As soon as he get back, he's like, I need my boys right next to me. So I feel like with this OpTic Texas team, obviously last year they come out, they win their own major. You're feeling good. Then the hand injury happens to Ender. And that's just tough. From a player perspective, to try to play with a substitute player for about 2 majors, and then to bring your old player back in to try to catch him up to speed, or at least take your gameplay to another level, that's going to be very difficult to do because now you learn a certain way to play with Prolu, a certain way to play with General. Role changes will happen in a little bit. But now when Illy comes back in, the game is also very different. Teams are playing it completely different from when the last time he spawned in. I can understand you're sitting there watching the scrims, but you're not physically playing the game. You don't know what the feeling's like, what the timings are like. So it was very difficult for OpTic to try to get back to that form where they were in the beginning of the year because at that point, other teams have already passed them. So they have to play catch up the entire time. And that's the biggest thing that I took away from OpTic. I felt like they were one of the best teams in the beginning of the year last year. We're one of the best teams all year. But when you have to face that much adversity, when you're playing with General at the Pro-Am, General for a couple matches, then Pro Luke comes in for 2 majors, and then Illy comes back, and now you have to just pick it all back up and act like everything's going to be all fine and dandy. It's very difficult. It definitely takes a toll on a lot of these players' minds. Like, imagine what Dashy was feeling like. Imagine what Shotzi was feeling like. Even Scump, knowing that we could have potentially done better if we had our original roster. If we did not have to take a break for about 2.5 months, almost 3 months without our 4 players on our team, we could have potentially been top 3 all year long. But since that happened to them, you had to play catch up. And unfortunately, they could not catch up fast enough towards the end of the year and ended up finishing in the top 8. So I feel like for OpTic, they should be okay. Good.
Do you think, and this is a point I want to bring up, now, this is nothing to do with Illy and his injury, except in the subjective. Basically, do you think it was an issue around the, what is the word I'm looking for here? The uncertainty of when he will return. Because you got to remember, we thought it was only going to be for a little bit. And bearing in mind, like, it must have been in the team's minds as well. Yeah. Because every fan wouldn't shut up about it for about 3 months. They're like, hey, it's all good. Wait till he gets back. We'll start taking ass. Like, we are just going to destroy when he gets back. We are going to kill everybody. It's going to be Major 1 all over again. And I pointed out Major 2 wasn't great for you. And I'm like, but the problem was we kept expecting him back. And I wonder if in the camp it caused an issue. Because it's fine to say publicly, it's okay. We're just concentrating on our game. When he comes back, it will be fine. But I feel like first of all, they're human, so there's no way that doesn't creep into your mindset. Like, this is people always give players this delusional, oh, they're stronger than anything. They're veterans. I was like, they're still human. We're not playing with robots, people. Like, they have feelings. They will think about this shit. And like, Dashy was probably waiting for him to come back. Shotzi was like going to come back. And if that's always in the back of your mind, you'll be like, it's easy to dismiss your losses without massively trying to improve, because we never knew who was going to be their 4th. But there was a period of uncertainty. I think it was brought up last year. It's like, do they go for a full roster change at this point? Is it worth trying to grab somebody like who they know they can lock in? And it was like, oh, well, it is their leader, their shotkeeper. It's not going to be easy to replace. I'm like, well, no, you're right. You can't replace Illy. But you don't have Illy, and you're uncertain what's going to happen with him, so you have to try and figure something out. And it looks like they hedged their bets on Illy returning, and it just never worked out for them. And I think you're right. I think the takeaway from OpTic last year is unrealized potential. Yeah. We never are going to know what would have happened if it weren't for the 1 in a million thing where a player has an unfortunate injury, because they never committed to changing the roster. They kept waiting for him to come back, and it was uncertainty. And then when they got back, it was too far to come back into the game. The league was too competitive. Thieves were roaring up the league. They were getting better. Seattle come through, and it's like, all right, this is when we get into the end times here. We know this is when the best teams come to play, and OpTic is starting off with 1 foot behind them.
I completely agree with you. When you're talking about like a team not really knowing what to expect of who their next player is going to be. You remember when they showed up at Pro-Am and Illy plays the map 1, and then unfortunately he couldn't play the rest of the tournament?
Yeah. You and I had the cats for that. We were like, wait, is he playing? Is he not? Like, what's going on here?
That takes a toll, because at this point you're going into an event with expectations like, all right, my guy's good. All right, we won this first map. Oh, wait, now he can't play. Now what are we going to do? Now we have to make up new strategies. Like, it's a whole different thing. It definitely was very frustrating for all 3 players besides Illy, who are just sitting there trying to play with subs, because they know what it could potentially be. Like, when they lose matches, they're like, if we had Illy, back in mind, they're thinking, if we had Illy, we would walk away with this series. And that definitely can take a toll on a player for sure.
And I feel like
also all their subs that come in, right? Like, any sub that went onto the OpTic thing just got beasted.
Yeah, because you're representing the green wall. If you don't win the match, they're not going to blame the core 3. They're going to blame the substitute player. And that's exactly what happened all year long. Pro Luke called the shit end of the stick. General called the shit end of the stick. Yeah, like TUNN said, easy scapegoat. But imagine what this team would have been like if there would be no injuries. Like Bryce said, a whole lot of like just simply unknown. We don't know what this team would have been like, but if we did have the roster, they probably would have been really good.
But I also think there is a level that we keep getting back to, which is almost like this underlying element of pressure. Like, not only is it OpTic Texas where you're expected to perform, but it's also an element of like, hey, this is Scump's last season. Like, imagine if OpTic Texas goes out and they don't win anything. Like, we're talking about like, oh, well, what if they won everything? What do you return? If Scump wins champs, do you think he come back next year? What happens if they don't even make it like to the top 6? Like, there is that new element to it. And then on top of it all, I feel like, again, we all know what the roster change was going to be. And I think we could all sit here with, you know, our tinfoil hats on and debate on, oh yeah, well, I bet it was this guy who thought that Illy wasn't fit to be on the team, and we don't really know. We don't know how Scump came into the picture, and again, that was the talking point, that he was the one that made the decision that said, hey, we're going to keep this roster together. Regardless of all those things, again, I keep getting back to this word pressure, and I think, you know, for Scump, he wants to go off on a high note. I also too wonder from a front office, you know, GM coaching staff perspective, like, I imagine that it wasn't just one person who was like, yeah, Dashy not fit to be here or whatever reason. Illy, you know, we have our question marks. I imagine that was a team, an organization decision. And so you not only are Dashy and Illy coming back to a team that you very well may have not been on this season, and you're not only worried about trying to perform, you're not only worried about, from Illy's perspective, trying to make sure that, hey, that my hand is going to be in working order. But you're also trying to make sure that you deserve to be here. You're trying to perform for the fans, and also you're trying to justify your position. And I feel like for Dashy and Illy, it's two different situations. I feel like for Dashy, again, we could talk about internal problems. I mean, the guy was literally like second place for MVP candidacy, so I doubt it has anything to do with the way he shoots his weapon. And so I think that it's two different levels of pressure. It's two different scenarios, but overall, it's such a weird situation to be in for OpTic Texas. And I wonder if, and this could maybe lead us to our next point, or someone could bounce off what I said, or we could jump to something else. But I do wonder if all of those things will correlate or almost be, you know, mulled over by the fact of like, you know what? It's Scump's retirement. Like, maybe we just put all this stuff aside and just go for it. But I hesitate to say that because, again, you know what? We're all going to remember the retirement, something we're going to be talking about all throughout this season, the storylines, all that stuff. But it gets back to me of the fact of like, you know what? What if they go into Major 1 and they bottom out? Like, what if they lose an early match? It's MW2. It's the start of the season. We haven't played as much as we want. What happens to a mentality of a roster that nearly split at the seams just a few months ago?
Yeah. It is overwhelmingly conflicting, my thoughts on this team at the moment. I think every single point Lando makes there is completely valid. Like, this team, what does happen if they come in there and finish 10th to 12th in the first event? What happens if they don't win an event within the first couple? Are they forcing things to then happen for Scump in his last year? There is so many factors around this team now that I think it's so hard to predict how good they're going to be, because we look at this roster on paper and absolutely, we've seen them win a major last year. They could do it again. They could absolutely do that again. We think that, but I don't know. The pressure that Lando talks about, it's so difficult to actually.
Who gets dropped if OpTic underperforms? It's not going to be Scump. It can't be, and it can't be
That's the least of my worries. That's the least of my worry. I'm not worried about anybody getting dropped. The biggest thing that you guys are talking about is pressure. Obviously, there's pressure on the rest of the 3 players because Scump is retiring. You want to go out there and get a bang. But this team is looking at it like, guys, what happens if Illy doesn't get that injury last year? We're the best team in the game. There's no question. We should be able to dominate the entire year. No, 100%. That's exactly what I'm saying, is like, now they have a clear mind. We have the best team in the game. We have all 4 players at a healthy state of mind. Everyone is good to go. Let's see what last year should have been this year. With Scump giving it his all on his last year, all of his teammates obviously want to win for him, but their confidence has to be at a whole different level now because they know that Illy is good. We're going to have this exact roster from start to finish of this game, and let's make the most of it. Let's go out there and be the team that we thought we would be last year, this year.
Is Illy good, though? Like, do we know?
Oh, well.
He should be. I'm watching the guy grinding at the
I'm just asking because I legitimately don't know.
I'm hoping he's good.
He better be. Jesus.
I genuinely wish the best for any player in that scenario. And that's always a difficult thing as talent. Because obviously, like, you have to talk about it. But like, genuinely for me, if Illy never played another game of COD, but he was healthy, I'm happy. Like, that is my guy. I would rather the guy is healthy than anything else. My issue comes that if I was a Green Wall fan this year, because there are a lot of scenarios that could go wrong. Like first of all, you're happy, right? You sit there going, hey, the team is back. We're going to start again. We're going to be great. And then you suddenly start to think about it going, I hope Illy's okay. What happened with Dashy at the end of last year? Chelsea didn't have the best end of season, you know, and Scump's actually retiring. Like that is a lot of stuff to just kind of weigh in the back of the mind of fans and to really think about and nail down on. Scump obviously is going to be a talking point all year, right? Up the greatest of all time conversation every single time. The best case scenario, obviously, for OpTic fans is they have a great year. He wins champs, carried out of the stadium on the green wall, tears flowing from everybody's eyes, and then he ascends into the heavens as the golden being that looks over us all, right?
He dies?
That's his retirement. He becomes energy. He becomes the second plane of existence.
The COD god at that point. That's who we refer to.
He bequeaths us with a new COD. It's incredible. it's all the best CODs combined, and he just makes that happen, right? But what if that doesn't happen? It's always going to be bittersweet. Every time Scump loses a series, people are going to worry about, is he okay? Because this is his last. He's put, first of all, how many people get to call their shots they're retiring? Like, oh yeah, I'm doing one more year. That's it. I'm doing one more year.
Point.
That's like so much pressure to put on yourself. Didn't have to say, I'm gonna do it one more year. I think he only did that because he was probably gonna retire last year and went, oh, all right, I'll do one more. I'm gonna tell people. And I'm like, all right. That kind of gives everybody like time to digest this rumor, and get it down with. But like, he will be sitting there knowing that he's going to give everything he can into it. And I think if it was any other player, I would be worried more about them as a person. I think Scump's always been pretty positive going forward, and he loves it. I just, if we get into like event 3 and they've not had a good year and they get smashed again, like, what is he going to be sitting there thinking? Because he's been sitting there, thank God I've only got 2 events left. Like, he'll want to do everything he can for his team, but he is only human. Like, there's a clock on his playing career, and it's 7 months from now. That's it. He's put a clock on his own career. He's put his own pressure on this year. Whether or not he was going to make that decision anyway, everybody's going to be looking at him because just imagine, just hypothetical here. I don't think this is going to happen. He's way too talented. Hypothetical. We go into a major. He's terrible. Never really happened, but he's not good. Like the amount of shit he's going to get. His team's going, 3 months left and you do this. Like, what are you doing? His teammates going to be looking at him going, how locked in are you? Do we need to win this? Like, everybody needs us to win you another championship. Everybody needs to get you another ring. Like, that's what's the pressure they put themselves on. Is like, if you're one of his teammates, you're going, holy shit, one of the greatest players of all times, the face of Call of Duty esports, is leaving, and we have to make sure if they have a bad game, if Shotzi has a bad game, fans are going to be on him. They're going to be on him for letting down Scump. Everybody is going to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. Even us, the talent, are locked the fuck in. We're locked in. I will be watching everything Scump does. I might just watch him. I'm not going to watch any other player this year. The Observer's been told we're not watching anybody else. It's only Scump all the time.
We're doing a lot of jaw dropping this year. Jesus Christ!
Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And Chance, I haven't heard from you for a while. I want you to bring me back from my swirling spiral of abyss, because I am going off the deep end already. He hasn't even retired yet.
I would say that, obviously with the injury potential, you never know what's going to happen or how the year is going to play out. All the pressure, I suppose you never really know. They're going to be contending for a chip at every single tournament they play the entire year. So that's the whole thing for me.
You feeling positive about this roster again going in this year?
1,000%.
The worst year Scump's ever had in his
ahead of myself. I was just spiraling out of control there.
No, I'm not worried about this team at all.
Scump has ever had was World War II, and even then he was still like at worst middle of the pack. So he's the most consistent player of all time. He's going to be great. Shotzi had his best player in the game. Dash had his best player in the game. Illy's going to grind. So again, as long as they're injury free. I don't know if any team is like, I don't know when the next time we'll have a year like the Atlanta phase Cold War season, the OpTic through the first or like the Jetpack years, where the entire time there's going to be a definitive best team in the game. I feel like this game isn't going to lend itself to that type of consistency. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who I would pick out of the 12 teams we have to be number one. I think it's like an open market, but I think OpTic are going to be contending at every single event and are like at worst at the end of the year can be like top 4.
Yeah, I
maybe
would agree
top
with you.
6 if like they have some funny business, but like
Yeah.
they're good, unreal players. They'll be competing for a chip every time.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
I kind of got ahead of myself with the Doom saying that. I was just going down a spiral. If I'm honest with you, I was sitting there thinking of all the worst case scenarios.
Not you likely going towards the negative side of things, is it?
And they got JP, so like, you know.
Oh, they got JP. There you go.
True.
Damn, what a coaching staff over there.
I agree. I think this is one of the teams I would definitely put towards the top of the league, regardless. Like, I just don't. All the other stuff I said aside, right? Like, obviously, I'm just doom scrolling there and just having a panic attack about Scump's retirement. If I was a betting man, this is one of the rosters. I'd say, hey, stick them top 3. That's where I'm locking this team in at. Like, I'm just locking them in there. They have consistency. We know they're good players. I don't really see a scenario, especially early season, where they don't have it. Like, they just, they're going to have it. They're going to know how to play. They're going to go through the motions. They're going to do anything they need to. They are too talented to fail, right? In my opinion, that is it. It's too talented to fail. It's a very competitive league. Unfortunately, these are the competitors. That's it. OpTic are the competitors. I don't know if anybody else has any feelings about them. But yeah, I think if you, like I said, I would say you should be a Green Wolf fan and worried on one side of it, but on the other side of it, it's a bloody good roster.
It's only worrying if you're a Green Wolf fan if you guys are not winning. Because at that point you're just like, oh man, we're wasting Scumps last year. That's what we're doing. Like, but from the players' perspectives, like I said earlier, it's like they're going into this year thinking like we shouldn't have any injuries. This is the team that we were gonna have in the beginning of last year. We were obviously one of the best teams in the game. We won Major 1 right off the rip, and then everything went down to shit. So then now it's time to like rewrite that script. Hopefully, like Chance said, no injuries happen. Because when no injuries happen, I think this team stays top 3 without question all year.
All right.
Yeah. I think they're within that. I think it's just a case of what kind of phase we're going to get, whether or not these guys win multiple events.
Oh, yeah. We ain't touch on phase, though, because I don't know what Chance was saying earlier. We'll get I don't know what team is going to be number 1, but I'm saying like, yeah, you might be faded. Atlanta fade. Jesus.
Like, to kind of put a bow on the OpTic Texas point, the only thing that I will say is I agree with what you guys talked about. I know I went on, a long spiel about what if it doesn't work. I do think there is an element where we have to be prepared, not even be prepared, but I think there's almost like this, I hate to use the word wall as an example, just because it's obviously the easiest one to use, but there is like a level of like, you know what, look at that, tall standing wall that's, supported, it's protecting this wonderful city. But at the same time, there are definitely a few small cracks that if the right thing happens at the wrong time, that I think that things could fall apart. And so, like you said, we talked about last year, and who knows how MW2 will play. How crazy of a year Vanguard was, right? With a fast TTK. Again, we have not even scratched the surface with Modern Warfare 2. Not even close. So if we have a similar moment and we imagine, like, what if one kill goes slightly different? What if one situation happens slightly different? How different does each team's season look? How different does a result look? Do certain teams stay together? Do certain teams fall apart? I think absolutely. And my only thing is, it's something that you can't really control if you're OpTic Texas, but it is that case of if they do underperform, if they do have a slow start, if they do get an unfortunate result, they have an accuracy 1v4 situation in Cold War, that type of, play, I guess, which is more of a crazier example to bring up. But you get my point. Like, I do have a lot of confidence in OpTic Texas, especially earlier on in a season. It's just a matter of forward thinking. It's a matter of considering where they were just a few months ago. If things do go wrong, if a few small situations go differently, I think you could have a problem on your hands. However, I would think the latter. But again, if it's like Vanguard, if it's anything like Vanguard, you have absolutely no idea.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Lando, it's definitely nothing like Vanguard. So we should be in the clear there, baby.
Result-wise, I don't know. Result-wise,
I think
we'll see.
I think from us, and this is probably just a reflection. So this is probably the end of OpTic Texas. If you're a fan, we all think they're going to have a good year, but we all appreciate just how much the magnifying glass is on them. That's all we've been talking about.
Yeah.
The reason that we will sit here and be hypothetical about the bad side of it is because we're going to watch them more than maybe anybody else, because we have to. We know one of the greatest is retiring. And that's it. It's going to be an incredible season for OpTic. We are positive about the team, but we're always going to bite our fingernails about that kind of team. So this has been the first half of the Talent Roundtable. Hopefully, everybody has learned a little bit. If you agree with us, great. If you don't, that's also okay. We hope you form your own opinions over what we've talked about. We've gone over the last kind of season for these teams and what we expect with the changes. So this has been us. We're going to do the second half. That'll be coming very, very soon. And like I said, hopefully you appreciate it. I don't know exactly where this is going out, but make sure you like, subscribe, and give as many comments as you can. We appreciate it. Thank you to the wonderful people who've done it this time. Obviously, Nameless is gone, but TUNN, Study, Chance, Lando, thank you. It's been great. It's been glorious. And we'll see you next time.
Go Michigan.